Alrighty, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hajim Zero here, back with another quick movie review. Wow, I just realized this thing's not that close. This one is another one of my favorite horror films, and zombie film of all time, a little bit next to 28 Days Later. This is Dawn of the Dead, the remake, and I'm gonna dive right in with the story first, and it's a pretty, just like with Day of the Dead, it's a pretty straightforward, story, but I'm gonna go a little bit more in depth. So pretty much, this film is about a wife that wakes up in the middle of no in the morning, and she discovers that her whole neighborhood is infested, with a viral outbreak of zombies, and she, of course, her and the rest of the survivors learn is pretty much the whole world, and pretty much like The Walking Dead, they really have no explanation, how the virus had even started, just like with the original Romero trilogy, and you know, this isn't really in canon with any of the Romero films. I think they just took the title and, of course, the premise of the mall and zombies, and they put it, to make the film. Um, and of course, Capcom's game Dead Rising had did the same thing. That was more comedic though, but with this film, it had a good amount of scares and laughs at the same time. It kind of somewhat had what Scream had, but this one's a little bit more serious because the fear and it was a classic fear of Hitchcock of what when he did The Birds, swarms and giant groups just coming at you. But these band of survivors, all different backgrounds, they're in this mall just trying to survive, and they come up with eventually at the end of the movie of getting out of the mall and going to an island with not that many people there, and pretty much that's how the movie is. I'm not gonna reveal much spoilers because I really want to talk about the behind the scenes stuff and the effects and all that good jazz. But uh, yeah, that's pretty much the basic for the story. With the rules in this one, pretty much if you're bitten or scratched or yeah, so far that's all that it was. If you're bitten or scratched, you turn within for a couple of minutes. It's not like the Walking no, not the Walking Dead. It's not like 28 Days Later where you turn instantly. But I will say this: uh, the this really, especially with the video games, this really had defined, scary zombies that ran and chased you because they would run at top notch to literally get your ass, like for real. Like, you know, um, the first time we officially even see it is when they do go into the mall and they see the one zombie with the missing arm and the other zombie right behind them, and they're just chugging right at them. And zombies I'm really not afraid of, but when they do run after you, that's a whole different story. They're like some track stars, like come straight up running after you to eat you. And behind the scenes stuff, they even said they looked at like real forensics of people who were had some kind of nasty physical trauma to their body, and even they said at some of the special effects guys at a certain point they couldn't even stomach looking at most of that stuff anymore. They eventually went with their imagination, and even some of the shots you can tell that they have on basic Halloween looking type of zombie makeup. And another good scary thing about the zombies was they had uh three stages of zombies. So the first zombie is pretty much you being bitten and you looking like a hospital patient just coming in, and you just have basic contacts and you turn. The stage two zombie is a little bit more of your natural look being decayed away. You're getting a little bit more and more pale. And the stage three zombie is the most grotesque looking one. Especially if it's hot out in the sun, you being burnt up all day, and all the colors really come out. And pretty much that's also what has sold the movie as well. They look like some nasty contaminated people. And my only flaw and issue with the story, and pretty much Kirkman and any other zombie fan can say this, we really wanted to know more about what was going on from a different perspective of people. um the gun shop owner that's in the movie, he has a little bit of his video diary. There's a little bit of a deleted scene, and you see that he had a life once, and it was kind of sad, what happened with him. He was dealing, it was kind of like The Walking Dead-ish a little bit, and, he was going through a divorce, and he eventually gets bitten, and he's turned. He has a daughter, and even Micheal, one of the main other characters in the film, he was a father and all that too, and when he, spoiler alert, when he gets killed, even I felt bad. I was like, damn, I really wanted him to live, because at a certain point in the movie, like right after the first big scare, when they're in the mall and the first person who dies, literally every single character at that point becomes an asset, and they were just getting picked off one by one. Well, most of them were. I know the security guard, the asshole security guard, played by Michael Kelly, he had redeemed himself. And again, going back to The Walking Dead, a lot of these actors and even the characters they had portrayed, they could have easily have been ripped and fit on the show, or the comic. I know Michael Kelly's character could have, and Ving Rhames' character, who was the sheriff, definitely could have fit on there as well. And even the other main character of the nurse could also fit. And it's just that all the characters had different backstories and it really played. I was thinking of Walking Dead character scenarios, since it's becoming an anthology now. And something that's telling me, of course, Robert Kirkman probably watched this movie and got some ideas from it. Michael Kelly's character, he kind of reminded me a little bit of this, what's that savior's name? He kind of reminded me of Simon, on The Walking Dead. Like they could be brothers or cousins or something. They had the same handlebar mustache and the same, assholey like attitude. And except Michael Kelly had redeemed himself, in a moment like that, the zombies really are the biggest enemy. You really don't have time to be bickering with each other. And he easily could have become a savior. Like, if you see Stephen Ogg's performance in The Walking Dead and you come back and watch this, you definitely most likely will possibly agree with me that some of the actors and slash characters could have fit in that world very perfectly. Another good thing, there are a lot of nods to the original Dawn of the Dead. Tom Savini, Ken Forsythe, and one of the other actors that played, I think it was Bert, but I could be wrong, but they have cameos in this film. Of course, when I first watched it, I didn't even know. I saw the original one much later. I saw this one first because I didn't even know it was a remake. My mom had knew. And the first time we saw it was at one of her friend's house, and it was on VHS. And I remember how terrified I was at watching this because it's running zombies. Like I said, it was the first running, chugging zombie movie I saw, next to 28 Days Later. And of course, with the video games like Resident Evil and Left 4 Dead, how they're just running full sprint at you. And it is the most terrifying thing. It's like I said, it goes back to the movie The Birds a little bit. It's that psychology of, a swarm coming at you. And one of the most famous shots out of that film was all the birds on a jungle gym, and then not to mention they're flying everywhere pecking at people. But getting to the special effects, this movie, like Captain America and Winter Soldier, which I also give them credit, they use a lot of practical effects. They only use CG when they needed to. And one of the main scenes they use CG for, even if you watch it, you can still be fooled. Even watching the movie, I didn't think about it till like the third or fourth time. I wonder how they did that. But the main CG film is that master shot when the character of Andy and Kenneth are playing chess back and forth on the rooftop, and he holds up the sign, and you see hundreds and thousands of zombies outside. And it looked like a rock concert, and looking at that, it fooled me. I was like, I wonder, did they hire all those people or if they're CG? And the other scene I could think of that was CG was in the beginning when a truck hits a car and it rams into a gas station and blows up. That was CG. And again, it fooled me too, Like I said, you're in a moment watching this, you're not thinking about it, but looking at a CG explosion and a practical explosion from a great distance, you can definitely tell when they put extra color in it that they enhance the explosion one way or another. so far, that's the only thing I can really think of. But mostly everything in this movie, especially the zombies and the gore, that was all practical. Especially one of the goriest, most messed up deaths in this movie to me was the character Monica, who got chainsawed right there in the breastplate. And I saw how they did that, and that was pretty amazing as well. They did a head cast, I think a head and body cast of her bust, and they took like where the shoulder, down from the shoulder down into the cavity of her of her torso. They had took all that out, and they filled that up with like with a blood pack, and it was with something else. And they said that in this, it was a two take shot. So you first see the chainsaw land, and then her screaming, and then you see it from another angle, like from the back, and that was the second take. And like I said, that was the most messed up one, because she didn't die by a zombie, and she died by someone in the bus, whatnot, where they were going. And like I said, it was a very well done effect. Another good zombie effect was the guy with the no legs that bit Bart in the back. He was a real amputee, and I think even on The Walking Dead, I think they used a couple of them for real, but I could be wrong. I know for Bicycle Girl that they used CG for those effects. That was back when the CG was really good. They didn't half-ass it. Later on their CG had got kind of bad, on The Walking Dead, but it was pretty much the best CG with the femur bone and the entrails. But back with this, that guy was a real amputee, and I think the running Asian man with the missing arm, he was an amputee as well. But back in those days before CG, and I even saw this with Tales from the Crypt Demon's Night, when the one chick got her arm pulled off, they put the actor in a fat suit pretty much, and then they ripped the arm off, and it looks nasty. And the funny thing is that now that I think about it, I was like, yeah, it's kind of funny, because CCH Pounder, she didn't look that fat in that movie. And even on Dawn of the Dead, when the guy got his arm ripped off, like in some of the shots looking at it now, you can tell that he could be wearing something, because it doesn't look naturally like him. It's like a big stump and then his messed up arm. But like I said, they did a really good job, selling it to you in the beginning. There's some good deep, actors in this. This is one of the movies where, there were famous people in it, and then it still scared the hell out of me. And because again, it like with Saw and 28 Days Later, and what was the other horror movie I said on the last review? If you can take the fear and putting yourself in it and just see them as real people, that is their selling point most of the time with these horror movies. Sometimes they're just sitting there trying to scare you just to be an asshole, but the ones that really deeply think about, what is fear, most of the time it's you thinking of what would you do in that situation. And that's why I mentioned the movie Saw, because that one is the most realistic of all the horror movies that I can think of, that can really happen. Someone kidnapping you and you waking up to some kind of device, some kind of trap, and he gives you a choice, but you have to do something horrible to yourself. And it's a situation of, yeah, what would you do? So another additional thing I like about this movie, it indirectly got me a little bit into country, and a little bit into heavy metal, or heavy rock. Two of the songs that are featured on here is Johnny Cash. I can't remember the name of the title of the song now. It pretty much talks about the apocalypse, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Dang, if you know what it is, you can tell me. I have it on my phone here, when I listen to it on my playlist, and it's one of the first songs that's on the playlist, and I can't even remember it. I know it's not the Men in Black, but it could be When the Man Comes Around. Yeah. And Disturbed's Down with the Sickness, and that song has been used in so many films, or so many times. I know it was used in Queen of the Damned, and then I want to say it was used in Jeepers Creepers. I know one of the songs in the trailer was used for Jeepers Creepers, but uh, it wasn't Stricken, but it was another one from one of their albums. I also have on my phone on a playlist, and it's like one of the first songs that comes on before Down with the Sickness. But if you listen to the lyrics, you just feel that radical thrash and all that. And they play the song twice. The first time it's a much more jazzy, upbeat tune to it, but the song that really stands out is "The Man That Comes Around" by Johnny Cash, because it talks about the apocalypse and the four horsemen, especially when he says the man brings death and hell follows with him. And it's that tagline that's in this movie: "When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth." And ironically, at the book of Leviticus in the Bible, and as well as other texts in the Bible, they talk about the dead rising up out of the ground and walking the earth again. So they didn't really say anything about feasting, but I'm about to get in the book of Leviticus anyway, and I'm gonna note it and write it all down. But of course Revelation talks about it, but there's some other pieces in the Bible as well. I want to say Daniel does it as well, but it does have a social commentary even at the time, but I don't think that's what Zack Snyder, the director, was even going for. And even I think it was just add more depth, and more intensified fear to make you really think about your life, because it goes beyond just one dirty thing. It was mainly, how humanity and dirty people are just in general, physically and spiritually and psychologically. Even with the original Romero trilogy, it came out at a certain time of some kind of social or public commentary. And again, you could look it up here on YouTube, because I really can't remember off the top of my head. And of course, other people can explain it, as better as I can. I think with Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead coming out in the 70s, it was more about, consumerism and capitalism. And it kind of even fell a little bit, even with Day of the Dead that came out in the 80s, it was about to hit, in the 90s, where jobs weren't really prevalent anymore. Certain fears with the Russians and certain unnecessary documented things were down there of all the bullshit to keep you distracted from what's really going on. So that's just a small interpretation. And I heard one of the guys talk about the breakdown of Romero's zombie films. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Wow, this was a long one, almost 20 minutes. But I will see you guys in the next one. And I will talk to you later. Peace.